Hello and welcome back to ID Boxing with me, your host Rob Tebbutt. As always, just like to remind everybody to please like, comment and subscribe. Turn your notifications on for more boxing content. Now that's out of the way, we are running slightly behind today. I thought I'd get it out there before Mr. Jones informs everybody of how long he'd been waiting. So let's go to him first. Of course, the former WBO super featherweight champion of the world. And for once in his life, turned up early today on the day that I turned up late.
By the way, this is all right. We're going to go there. We're going to go there. Like, this is your business, by the way. So you should always be here on time. I shouldn't be waiting for you to start your... Like, you wait for me, and I should apologise to you, but that's all it should be. It's unforgivable I have to wait for you. Not because of who I am, because I'm nobody. The fact that this is your job, this is your life, this is your company, and you can't even be on time because you're holding hands with Daniel Dubois and giving Shane McGuigan his Wardley. He takes people on, like Adam Azim on the pads and all that crap. Like, they mean nothing to me, those people. I don't even know who they are.
I'm going to send this clip to Daniel Dubois, and we're gonna receive.
Listen, I'm not scared of him.
No,
he's too big. Anyone over 6'2", I'm not scared of because they're too big to be scared of. You're too big to be scared. Yeah, who cares? It's not even a fight. But anyway, thanks for turning up.
You're welcome. It is good to have you back. We've not had you for the last couple of shows we've done.
No, I know. I know. I went on YouTube recently and I saw you and Andy going, "Oh, we didn't tell Barry Jones," which was nice.
Yeah, should have done that today, but we didn't. And you are back with a vengeance. What have you been up to last few weeks? Been working, been busy.
Yeah, been working for people, doing stuff.
So this is Barry Jones selling himself as a freelancer here. Been working, doing some stuff, not bigging anybody up.
I realised, I was trying to keep everyone happy by mentioning people, but I think it's not work. It's been working against me, not for me. So I'm going to start mentioning companies that don't work for me. Companies that are probably never going to use me again. BT are lovely people to work with. Fantastic, right? They don't phone anymore, but I think they will again.
Yeah.
They need someone to sell Sandor and Fury, won't they?
Yeah, well,
better than me, unfortunately, to sell that fight, but still.
That's all right. Well, they've got Andy Clarke, so we can speak to Andy Clarke. Well, they don't. They don't
Andy
Clarke is, I think it's something to do with people who come on the ID boxing shows. I think it works, and then they see you and they think, you're a reputable member of the media before you started coming on here.
I worked for BBC 5 Live for this show, and Natasha Jonas, and she boxed tremendously well, by the way. I'm sat down. We get there early. We're into the main fight. Get there a little bit early. I got my bag of nuts. I'm off the sweets. And it was in front of me. It's Sky TV, the Sky people. Then Macklin's there, sat there, and you know what I mean? He's doing his bit. And Johnny Nelson's over there with a little fella, Dave Caldwell, the only guy shorter than me in boxing. And Andy Clarke. Like a rubber bullet.
ID Boxing's Andy Clarke.
There we go.
I think that's what I'll stick with. From
ID Boxing's Andy Clarke.
I think that's the safest. That's the safest thing to say because this is the thing that I do most consistently. I think.
There we go. Look after Andy Clarke here on ID Boxing. Not Barry Jones though, but anyway. Andy, how are you? Obviously seen you a little bit more frequently than him, but how you been getting on? What you been up to?
Yeah, been good. Just been down the gym with you, of course, for the last few hours.
Working out, by the way, might I add. I did 10 miles on a treadmill. I did what are them things called? Sit-ups. I did some of them.
Down at McGuigan's gym. First time I've been to there. It's not that new anymore. The space isn't new, but they've been there a while. But it's quite near where I live, actually. It's about 3 miles from where I live. So yeah, it's always good to go down to gyms. You find out interesting things. So I've got Adam Azim on Sunday for that Sky show. Bilham Smith was in. Ellie Scottney was in. Haven't seen her for quite a long time. And the two brothers. So it was, you can tell that it's a busy, successful, kind of thriving stable, can't you? And it's always just good to go down, and you never know what you might find out. You end up having conversations about all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it's always good to get out and about. And it's been pretty busy the last few weeks. Obviously this weekend's really busy. I might go to the O2. I was thinking TalkSport might pick that bill up, the Warren card, but I think everything's just World Cup with them, which is understandable. So I might just go down and watch because again, it's near me, and I think we're in for a pretty good finish to the year. Really, maybe not all of the fights that we were hoping for have happened because there were so many things that looked like they might come off. But I still think it's pretty. I still think it's we've got some good stuff coming up between now and Christmas.
And it's busy, which is always one of the more...
definitely busy.
Thought one weekend we'd have 3 televised cards.
Yeah, exactly.
No, let's be honest. Like we always go, like, especially people my age, we romanticise about back in the day and when things were real and pure, but we never seen this much boxing. Ever.
No, absolutely.
It's all diluted crap, though.
unless Barry's watching it or working on it, and in which case it's the greatest thing of all time.
No, it's not. It's good, and I think it's some good fights, especially this weekend. So.
Well, before we get into that, Andy, being the humble man that you are, did you mention it was his birthday yesterday?
It was my birthday yesterday. That's
Did you get
right.
up to anything? Oh, that's why we were late. We were on a bender. We weren't. I was.
I didn't really get up to an awful lot. Just had a lazy day.
Were you eating or something? Well, I was waiting here, and you two were off having in Starbucks sharing a muffin.
Having a cake.
Yeah.
Sharing a muffin, and not in the good way.
No. I didn't really do a lot yesterday, moving swiftly on from that borderline inappropriate comment. But no, it was good, yeah. I just
people are funny, man.
Just hung out at home with my wife, which is pretty much all I do these days.
Well, happy belated. But you are back, and it's nice to have 3 of us here. Not that I don't love our intimate chats when it's just me and you, Andy, but yeah, 3 of us back on today, and we've got a lot to get through. So considering we were waiting around for Barry Jones, let's just get started, shall we? Let's go from this past weekend. Barry, going to come to you first. We saw Anthony Yarde in his kind of not necessarily an audition, because the fight obviously was done with Artur Beterbiev, which I've been corrected about how I usually call him Beterbiev.
Yeah, I used to do that. No, it's Beterbiev.
Beterbiev, yes. So anyway, Anthony Yarde, 3rd round stoppage win over Stefani Koykov. Kind of was what it was on paper, I felt.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and I think it's forgivable as well. I don't know, we can always pick bones out of it. Oh, he should have boxed someone more competitive, but it was a mark time fight for him. So it was a cobweb brush off. That's all it was, and acceptable. And he wasn't top of the bill, of course. So it doesn't matter, And yeah, and he looked good. And listen, he needs to be at his very best for what he got coming against the Canadian Beterbiev.
Yeah,
Canada's own Beterbiev. No, but listen, he's in a bit of a test. It's not a bigger leap than the Kovalev fight, because he never boxed nobody at that level. No, he's boxed at world level before. Only the one fight, but he's still been there, so he understands what it's like, and he's been away from home as well, which let's not forget how tough that is. But still, this is a different proposition. This is a guy who's not young, but doesn't look like there's holes in his makeup with Beterbiev, but it's a hard ask. When you sort of think you're trying to say constructive things, and you just think about him like walking up to you and like snarling and throwing shots, and it's difficult because it can be a bit cute at times. He can, and he can box quite well, and he has plenty of power. So I think he can hurt Beterbiev, but you got to be able to take it. And that I just don't know, to be honest. That's the problem for him. But Saturday was what we expected. Him just he walks through the guy. He took some punches, but I don't think that's an issue either, because I don't think he had any respect for the guy he was boxing. He just wanted to go in there, look good, look a bit flashy, get a couple of rounds under his belt, and that's what he did.
Blew off the cobwebs, so to speak. Andy, going to come to you. Beterbiev, somebody who I know that you would have watched in the amateurs, had some great fights in the amateurs, and has really, apart from, well, I mean, he was put over by Jeff Page early in his career. Very, very kind of flash knockdown. And then he was dropped quite heavily by Callum Johnson, who was, of course, recently retired. But other than that, and particularly in recent times, there's not an awful lot of, I guess, encouragement that you can take from looking at Beterbiev and his performances recently. You only have to go back to his last fight, unification against Joe Smith. And it was a destructive performance, as we've grown accustomed to seeing from him. And as Kovalev was in Yekaterinburg, this is another hard ass for Anthony Yarde.
It absolutely is, because there aren't really that many miles on the clock with Beterbiev. He had a long, storied amateur career, and lots of people were after him when he turned pro, and it was kind of a surprise, really, when Yvon Michel got him. But he's built up a really good record around that time and since of signing big name overseas fighters, and he's with Top Rank now. But as you say, Callum Johnson provides a glimmer of hope, because he showed that Beterbiev is a human being, because he was hurt when he was put down. And I know that Callum and Joe Gallagher, if they could have their time again, would have been more aggressive after that knockdown. because he was in trouble, and you could see he genuinely was. But other than that, there's not really a great deal to go on. He's just so good at getting on top of you, of denying you that space. He punches quite short but hard, and everything he throws does damage. So it is a huge task for Anthony Yarde, who I am an admirer of, because his career is crazy, really, isn't it? Because he got himself right up to the top of those rankings, then had a massive step up against Kovalev, and I thought he really did himself credit that night. Not because he nearly won, although he did nearly win, because he was perilously close in that one round, but just because he showed that, as Barry was saying, he had the minerals for it. He lost every round of that fight outside of that one round, but he hung in there until the point where he was so exhausted he got put down by a jab. But he was away from home, and I think he showed us a lot. But he's back in. I was going to say back in at the deep end, even deeper, which is a bit unlucky, maybe, if you think about it. That some people have the rub of the green with world title shots, and some people don't. And so far, he hasn't.
For the Kovalev thing, he had a chance to step aside for Kovalev to box Canelo.
Yeah.
And I got told it was better money than what he was getting for the fight.
That's it. I love that.
And he said no. Now, bear in mind, he gets an automatic crack at the winner, which would have been a vacant title because Canelo would have beat Kovalev, as he obviously did later down the line, or the next fight, I should say. And then he boxes for a vacant title in London.
He could have got anybody for that.
And becomes a world champion and gets paid twice.
Yeah.
And he said no. No, I don't know Anthony. I never really, I know I covered most of his career, but I never really met him. Just don't speak to him. I don't speak to many fighters because they all don't like me because I don't say things they always like, unfortunately. So you said keep your distance. You know what that's like. You keep your distance a little bit. And but I admire that. And also the ring, and I tweeted the other night about this, the canvas was about that thick. It was so spongy. And I remember on the day I think I said to maybe, it might have been George Warren, maybe. I say ask him, but he doesn't know who I am. We've gone this story before when I met him in Vegas, and I said, "Hiya, George." He didn't know who I was. I was working on the Kovalev Canelo for his Box Nation, his TV channel. But and I think Tunde was there, and I did say, like, I remember I got in the ring and jumped around. I went, "That's just so spongy," which someone on Twitter said was the same for the other guy. But if you've been training on that that, you get used to it. And for someone with a wide stance like Yarde, who generates power from their feet and legs, like most people do, that drains your energy. Like, he wouldn't have beat Kovalev anyway, because it was a step up. Because you said he engineered his way to a world title fight, which was his career up until that point was always wrong with boxing. I thought, take away the drugs scenario, but I mean, getting to that position by boxing nobody, just going doing the intercontinental route, and that's what he did. He boxed all safe opponents. They weren't real tests. He didn't really have a test of attrition or somebody who could take a shot or somebody who could hit hard, really, for him. And every fight was easy for him. Sometimes you get that. You do that with some guys who've had a massive wealth, like a Joe Karzagi, for instance, but he's shown his minerals or his metal as an amateur before, so you knew he had what it takes to grit. But Anthony Yarde, he had a couple of amateur fights, and then he had people forget this, he had a lot of those white-collar fights as well. People forget about that. So he'd had more fights than what he makes up, but still, lacking in experience of any sort of depth before he turned professional. Now, you don't always going to react when he hits someone and they don't move. It turned out he reacted really well. Or when he gets hurt, how is he going to react? It turned out he reacted tough. He's a tough kid. But we didn't know that. And to find that out at the world level is the worst place to find it out at, because you're just like, you're in deep waters there, and there's no way out, no way around it. So it seemed like an absurd way to get a world title shot. But he proved that he was sort of worthy of the opportunity, and I thought that was great. And he showed the desire not to take the step aside money, which was huge, and a guaranteed world title shot, and he would have got anyone to fight him, and he's a world champion, isn't he? And he'd probably regret that now, but he didn't. And I admire that from him so much. And I also admired how he changed from the first Arthur fight to the second. I think the second one, I know Arthur's a different level to Beterbiev, Lyndon Arthur, but Yarde's taken his whole career just patient. I always used to praise him about he never rushes his work. He's kind of a really good fighter, but always gets the job done early. But he waits for opportunities to present themselves, and never created any. But against Arthur the second time, he was busier. He created the opportunity. He created the space. He created the shots rather than just wait and wait and wait for you to make a mistake. And I think he's going to need that against. But if he can't just wait for against Beterbiev, if he just waits and waits and waits, he's just going to get beat up. So he's going to have to be busy and gamble. I can't see how he just doesn't gamble. He has power. You think he has to just bet on himself and go for it. I think, and just because a guy's been hurt by one guy doesn't mean he's not going to get. You're going to hurt him, by the way. Because being hurt is not always a sign of a weakness. So you react when you are hurt.
It's important to realise we've had this conversation in the past where, well, obviously Callum Johnson, similar to the Anthony Yarde-Sergey Kovalev fight, where he kind of had that moment where he was close to winning the fight, also got stopped a couple of rounds after that. So it was, as you mentioned, kind of the way that he recovered from that. He went straight back to business, essentially. Andy, somebody we caught up with in Mexico, so Alexander Vosdik, his last fight was against Artur Beterbiev, and he said that he felt like people underrated Beterbiev's boxing skills. He says he wasn't a master boxer. He still thinks Dmitry Bivol is kind of the better technician, the more well-schooled fighter. But do you think people underestimate Beterbiev? Is he more than, quote-unquote, just a puncher?
Yeah, I think so, absolutely. Because you look at the way he goes about things. He's tight, he's compact. And, it's not like people have found him easy to hit. He gets nice and close. As Barry said, he's one of these people who seems to be able to take his time. When you're watching him fight someone, what you're generally seeing is people fighting at two different speeds. You've got one fighter who looks like he's got all the time in the world, and another one who looks like he's in fast forward because they get hit and maybe they get a bit spooked or panicked by the power, and then they're all over the place. But like I say, he gets the feet close, he punches short, but whenever he does punch, it lands somewhere. He very rarely misses you completely, whether it's a shoulder or a glove or it half gets through, he lands and it has an effect. So he's a very efficient, economical kind of boxer. And yeah, I think he's skills-wise, okay, he's not maybe all that flashy, but it's not really about that. It's about the damage that you do with what you land. And I think almost anything he lands on you will just take a little chip off you, whatever it is.
It's pressure and presence. So
yeah.
They use and all those Eastern Bloc fighters do it, and they use that front foot to put you under pressure. Golovkin did it, Usyk does it. They all do it a different way, but they all do it. So and Canelo does it, even though he's not Eastern European or Eastern Bloc or whatever you want to call it.
About this before, like taking that from Golovkin and.
But they put you in. What we said about Canelo loads of times. Like he's 5'8", if that, but he's 6 foot when he's in the ring. His presence is huge. He intimidates you because his reputation precedes him. That helps, by the way. Once you knock a few people over, I would imagine. Not talking out of yeah, no, not go there. But I mean that's the and people panic. So when they hit you anywhere. Like I say, I always say, don't I, when you got power, make him feel it early. God, make him feel it. Make him panic, because they know then, if they make a mistake, can I go on the puncher, and I've been in with people who can punch a bit, when they hit you and you feel it, whatever it is, you're not scared, but I can't make a mistake, I've got to make sure I'm right now, because if I get it wrong, you won't take that extra risk. So it slows you down. There's an extra thought process to your work, and that gives them enough time to get closer to you, and then they get the work.
Because it puts you into your shell, doesn't it? Because you just think, every time I open up, if I open up and I get hit, I'm in trouble.
That's the panic, the pressure, and the presence.
And then you start to force your work even more.
But what they're making you think with their presence is intimidating you. The pressure, they're nicking your space, and then they go to work, and they make you throw out of necessity. You see, to throw. When you want to be thrown relaxed, it's all body mechanics, smooth. Even when you're putting power in it, it's all smooth and turn from the core and all these things I say all the time. But you can do that all day, theoretically. But when you rush your work, when you're forced to punch out of necessity, it's not smooth, it's quickened. You have to react, and it's faster. Or you're bringing your elbows up because you're starting to panic a little bit. And that starts to drain your energy, and you can't regulate your breathing. When you want to punch, when you're being proactive, you're setting it up in your mind. So you're almost getting your breath ready. So when you start the sprint, ready, steady, go. It's that when you punch, pretty much. You know what you're doing. You're ready to go. Right, I'm going to throw 4 punches. When you have to do it off the cuff, when you have to force to do it, you can't always get your breathing right. And all these things tire you out. So you're thinking, you're having to react. You're thinking, you're well aware what they're going to do, but you also got to think, I got to do some stuff. You're having to punch just to keep them off you. as well. Even if they're not there, sometimes just the front foot makes you feel panicky. You felt the power, so you're worried about that. So all those things tire you out. And you think, why is he like, why? And you go, why is one guy busting a gut just to stay in the fight, and the other guy's just swanning round like he's doing nothing?
It's a kind of crazy visual, isn't it? Because you do see it quite often, and most often, like Golovkin probably, and you've got someone who is just, they just look like they're just walking across to order a drink at the bar, and the other guy looks like he's running for his life, and they're both supposedly doing the same thing.
Well, it sounds like a bloody horrible task ahead for Anthony Yarde. Here's what he had to say about his bout with unified light heavyweight monster Artur Beterbiev on January the 28th.
Just want to read you a quote that I read from yourself earlier in the week. You said, "I'm on a mission, I'm pissed off, I'm going to stay pissed off." Can you elaborate on your mentality going into this Beterbiev fight?
My mentality is, it's win the fights by knockout. I feel like that's my style. That's how I fight. Land the shots that you need to land. That's it. This is business. Take everyone out. That's literally my mentality, and I don't mean that in any like braggadocious way or anything like that. It's just that it's a style of fighting. We're not in there playing, having pillow fights with each other. My mentality is, cool, I'm going to see openings, I want to take it. If it's whether it's the body, whether it's the head. Yeah, no games.
Last one from me. What does it mean to you that the biggest fight of your career is going to be in London?
It means everything, because London's where I'm from. I feel like it just adds that little bit of seasoning to the ingredients. And yeah, man, I'm excited for it.
So that was Anthony Yarde, as just mentioned there. Seemingly unenviable task ahead of him against, in my opinion, still the number one light heavyweight in the world. Barry, going to come to you straight away. We saw Joe Smith kind of have a go straight at Artur Beterbiev, and he got knocked out in a couple of rounds. Yeah. How does Anthony Yarde approach this fight? How does he beat Artur Beterbiev? What's the plan here?
If you're a puncher, you gotta try and impose your power on him before he does it to you. You gotta try and push it back. I can't see how he does it though. I don't know. So does he find an angle? Do you punch from angles? You don't put no box in him because he just walk you down. You're just going to waste energy because Yarde's a big muscular guy, so he can't. As much as all the stuff they do on the pads and it's all nice and relaxed and loose, and that's great. But under real pressure, it's a little bit different. I don't think he's a dancer and a mover anyway, though he can move quite well. But he has a wide stance, so that doesn't bode well for longevity in a ring. You know, you're going to tire quickly. So you've got to fight, but I just think, you know, if you throw your punches, it's what you do after. You got to move, you got to pivot. Yes, like the great Joe Calzaghe would do. There you go. I got those two in really early. But no, I think it's that you got to hit and you got to get a different angle. You got to hit again because he's going to throw back every time you throw. He's going to throw at you. I struggle. I admire him. I'd actually like to see him win, to be fair, but I can't see any way that he wins. I can't see it unless you got to knock Beterbiev out. I think that's the good thing about this fight. It will be someone's getting knocked out.
Yeah, I can't see any way that this goes 12 rounds. Andy,
it's a fantastic fight. Actually.
How about you? How does Anthony Yarde go about beating Artur Beterbiev?
Well, I agree that it's not going to go the distance. I don't think it's going to go all that long. I wouldn't imagine. I don't really see it going past halfway. And I think he just has to roll the dice. You can't be too gung-ho or reckless at that kind of level, because if you just step into the middle of the ring and just start swinging, you'll get slaughtered by somebody like him particularly. So there has to be a plan, and you've got to try and stay as tight and compact as you can, but he has got to try and give it to him, essentially, for want of a better phrase, and trust that punching power that he's got, because that's the only way that he can beat him.
The worry is, like, because Beterbiev will take the centre of the ring. That's what Yarde's got to try and do. And Yarde's got that shoulder roll and it works, and he's nice and smooth with his work, but that left hand's always low. And that's the worry, because he'll flick the jab out, but Beterbiev throws a nice right hand over the left jab, and that's the worry for me. Like, you think a double jab would work, try and push it back with a double jab, and then you move around the body maybe, but you can't throw a double jab from your waist. It's got to be from your shoulder, bam, bam, like that. I think you can't flick it out from here with any real. The first one will be snappy and hard. The second one's it's just not going to be any good. So it's got to be higher. Can you and are they going to change their style for that? I wouldn't have thought so, because they've, you know, to be fair to them, I admire them for it. They've him and Tunde and obviously now James Cook. That's their style. They've literally bet the whole career. This style is how you win a world title. Now you become the best fighter on the planet, and so I think they're not going to change that. I think James Cook will want to have his hands higher, I would have thought, for something like this, because you need to be defensively and not panicking under pressure. I think that's, if you can sit in the pocket and be comfortable.
Just sounds horrible.
No, but you know what I mean. No, but
I know what you're trying to say, but
you got to get, no. If you can sit low in there and just and be able to like absorb, because he got massive shoulders. He's a big, strong guy. He got big arms. Yeah, if you can use that to absorb shots and take and hit, you know, like block and hit with the same hand. But again, I can't see it.
Catch and counter with Artur Beterbiev just sounds like...
It does sound it, but it's
quite Russian-Canadian roulette.
But a catch and counter is more, I think, I'm not assuming, this is more closer though, but a catch and counter is usually from range where you sort of bump and you slip one over the top. There's speed with that, but this is really like, you know, you're getting close and trying to just stunt the power early. But again, we talked about Beterbiev, he seems quite flat-footed, but he's not. He does slide a little bit. Yeah, like Golovkin, he seems flat-footed, but he slides in out of distance, and
and economical, isn't it? It's just everything's efficient.
So one pace, if you want to be critical at times, but it's the one pace is it's not even a fast pace, but it's like you said before, for the guy on the other end, you're going 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, I mean Marcus Brown had a couple of rounds where he was able to keep the distance, and obviously he's a decent amateur, good boxer, but it's the pace that he had to work at those 2 or 3 rounds, and then all of a sudden, after 3 rounds, he starts to get a bit slower, and then Beterbiev just starts to up it just gradually. And it's as you said as well, everything is short. There's no, he doesn't wind, for the only world champion with 100% knockout ratio, you never see him wind up. It's all short, everything's compact, he doesn't waste anything.
You need to be massively athletic, throw blistering combinations, like a Sugar Ray Leonard, with speed and power, and then move off. And then create some space, let him walk you down, feint, throw real fast combinations, spin the other way, keep changing direction so he can't plant his feet, and do it that way. So pretty much you need to be the Sugar Ray Leonard of the light heavyweight division. That's to beat him. I'd say that. Or Bivol in a different way. Although saying that, we did the thing for the zone with Bivol, and then the guy I was working with, Todd Grisham, said about Bivol, does he have a ceiling? And I said, yeah, Beterbiev. And then never got a phone call again.
Yeah. Is that fight any different for you now? How did you used to see that fight? How do you see that now? Bivol versus Beterbiev, which, by the way, everybody check out the interview that I did with Mauricio Suleiman. I don't think that fight's going to happen anytime soon, by the way. But let's kind of, for argument's sake, how does that fight go in your head now? Because I think the general consensus is Bivol with the wins over Canelo, over Zerdo. Obviously, he had a couple of good wins before them, but those 2 in particular, it's seemingly got a little bit closer now. Perception.
Yeah, it definitely has. So I would, prior to the year that he's had Bivol, I would have picked Beterbiev, and I still would. But the gap has narrowed. I just think of the 2 of them, Beterbiev is just better. You know, no pun intended. I think Bivol, I was never that convinced by. I was never that convinced by, to be honest, when he had a few underwhelming fights, not just performances, but he had a few underwhelming fights. I remember a voluntary against Lenin Castillo, and there were some good wins in there as well after that one punch. Yeah, after that one punch.
He just did enough, didn't he?
Knockout against Broadus. Yeah. But yeah, he's one of these guys who did enough. He did enough against Craig Richards, and then he showed us against Canelo that he's kind of a big occasion guy, maybe, and that when more is demanded of him, he can step up. He can step up and do it. I mean, I'd love to see it. I would absolutely.
But again, he does that though, doesn't he? He throws in combinations and they're powerful without being knockout punches. But then he moves, and he creates that space. But he wouldn't get the luxury. Like Bivol's not gonna have like a Ramirez who walks up to you, heel toe, walking up to you, so you can see with Ramirez, you can see him coming from the other side of the ring. Oh, here he comes, look. Ready? Yeah, let's go. No, yeah, he's an effective fighter, Ramirez, when he lets his hands go, but you can see where he's coming at if you've got the IQ of a Bivol. But no, Beterbiev is going to be a bit more I would say cute. He's not quite cute, but I mean, he'll slide up to you.
Yeah.
Before you know it, they have that knack, and I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they do it because I can never do it. All of a sudden they're there, and then they're here. How did you get there? Sometimes they dip their legs, and I'm sure they sort of dip their legs a little bit, and they sort of like their left leg becomes like 3 foot longer, and they just like go whoop, and then they stand up. They do. I think when they dip down, their left leg goes closer, and then they come back up. They come back up like this.
Yeah, you've said it before about Usyk as well.
Usyk's brilliant. Every time he dips his leg, wider.
Right, we're going to have to move on because we've got a lot to get through. But before we move on to what's coming, let's talk about this past weekend. Liam Davies versus Yana Baluta. It was a fight I was really looking forward to on the face of things, and it proved to be a decent fight, but one where Liam Davies was a clear winner, Barry.
Yeah, and you got a guy who's like starting to knock people over for fun, really. To be honest, he got power, Davies, but he boxed well. I think it was a professional and disciplined performance, which is what he needed against Baluta. I think he beats someone like Baluta. You should beat him every time if you're going beyond. If you're going European level, he's a European.
He's a great gatekeeper for that.
For the European level, so you should beat him really if you've got any aspirations of being a European champion, even if it wasn't for the title. But you have to be disciplined with him. If you haven't got discipline, he'll beat you. And he's like a Quirfy. He's the same sort of fighter who's been a European champion, of course. That's not disrespect to him, but he's that sort of guy. If you keep your discipline against someone like him, and don't get carried away, then you'll beat him if you've got the ability. If you've got ability to go to European level and maybe just above. But if you lose your shape or try and show off or try and go for the finish that's not there, you come unstuck and lose your shape, they'll do a number on you. We've seen that in the past. And I think, David, he didn't mess around, didn't overreach when he landed a few good shots, didn't get carried away, won't be on the jab. And but tell you what, he steps behind that jab. I put a tweet out. When he steps behind that left jab, it's harder than most right hands. You can see the head go bam, and also being at home as well, having a crowd there and all those things. You're topping the bill on a major network, and all get carried away with yourself, and he never. And that some people might think, he didn't get the stoppage. I think he showed the maturity there that he needs to step onto the next level. So I thought it was a great performance.
Andy, there's talk now of Liam Davies versus Shabaz Masoud, who had that win over Jack Bateson on the Sonny Edwards undercard. Do you like that fight? Did it do anything for you?
Yeah, I do. I like that fight a lot. I spent a bit of time with Shabaz in Dubai back in March, and he's a good fighter. And that was a great match with Bateson first off, and again it was a really good fight to watch. And I like Davies as well because he emerged on my radar really during lockdown. I did a couple of his fights during lockdown, I think, and he's from where I'm from, roughly, and it's not a big boxing hotbed around Telford, Shrewsbury, where I come from. And Richie Woodall was one of the people who kind of got me into boxing in a way because he was near me, so you'd always look out for people like that. And I thought he boxed really well at the weekend for all the reasons.
That's why you're so fucking boring. Sorry, go on, sorry.
At least people can understand me.
Subtitle.
And I thought he boxed really well for all the reasons that this clown on my left-hand side outlined. Because he could have got carried away. He's in front of his home crowd. He sells lots of tickets. They could really do something with him in Telford because there's a big enough base of people there who want to watch him, whereby they can keep him there. And the way you lose to Baluta, like Barry said, is if he ends up getting you to fight the wrong kind of fight. And he didn't do that, which is a good sign. But yeah, no, I like that fight. I like that fight a lot. People were talking about him against Jason Cunningham as well, which is obviously a much easier one to make, I think, than the fight against Masoud. But it's good to see these fighters build a following in their hometown and kind of like go back and do it the traditional way. You know, Dalton Smith in Sheffield, Bilham Smith in Bournemouth, Liam Davies in Telford. The last few years with social media and everything, everybody's got obsessed with going global and how many social media followers you've got and all the rest of it. Concentrate on trying to sell out your local arena first, whatever size it is. Just to see if you can do that, because that is a serious achievement. If you can get 1,500 people to come and watch you, that's massive. You know, never mind how many Twitter followers you've got. Clicking follow on Twitter is the most casual thing you can do, isn't it? It doesn't translate to watching you on the TV or buying a ticket. You know, think about, you know, some fighters could sell out their own living room when they're talking about going global and all the rest of it. It's a mad world at the minute. But and I love seeing it with someone like Davies, where he's got that hardcore support which will follow him everywhere, really, and they won't desert him if he loses. I don't think, and it's just a great kind of bedrock to build off.
Actually, when Sky went to Bournemouth, I said this reminds me of the 90s. So to be fair, BT had been going to Telford before that, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I said that about the Bournemouth. It reminded me of the 90s, where Sky used to just go around the country all the time.
There's a lot to be said for it, I think.
But it was leisure centres. It wasn't. There was never fights even in like indoor arenas, like 5,000. They were all just world title fights. It's not like they are now. Because it's better for kids to box. No, it's not better maybe for the promoter, but it's better boxing in a leisure centre where there's 1,200 people and it's packed, and there's 400 people who would have come as well, who couldn't get a ticket, than boxing at like 5 o'clock in front of 20,000 people, but there's actually only about 1,500 people there, maybe, and you can't have no atmosphere. You'll box better, the performance, a better atmosphere for the TV as well. You've got these people boxing, and we did Billy Joe Saunders versus anyone in Box Nation, and he wasn't selling tickets. Him and Andy Lee in Manchester, which was a really big fight, actually. It was empty. I mean, it was just the place
I remember
was
watching that.
I worked there. It was absolutely empty, and the fighters are better than that. And they got, by the way, they both got paid a fortune, which is great for them. But I mean, it was empty, and you just think, you want these two world class fighters, and they were, to perform at their best in front of nobody. Luckily, because they box at such a high level as amateurs, they're used to that. Even though they've gone way past that in their career, they just default back to it doesn't matter. I know I can get in the zone, but. No, it doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help the people working on broadcast. It doesn't help the fighters, the crowd, the people watching at home. You can feel the atmosphere. I watched that Bournemouth fight like on TV. I was doing the Commonwealth Games in the hotel, and it looked great. I was excited. The fights were brilliant as it goes. But I mean, they look good. It helps sell everything. So sometimes they're all going to these big arena things, and what's the fucking point?
Yeah, I think particularly at the moment, because there's lots of shows, and everybody's trying to do things as big and as bold as they can. And what's wrong with a British title fight topping a packed York Hall?
What's wrong?
Nothing. There's nothing wrong with that.
What's wrong with Sunday afternoon?
Yeah,
that might be brilliant. That
it could be good. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, that'll be really interesting.
I feel like I mentioned DAZN enough.
Or just other nights.
Saturday night on DAZN's are fantastic.
Or other nights of the week. I know the promoter will always want Saturday generally, because they're thinking about the gate.
Yeah.
But, there are other nights of the week where for the TV audience, it probably, maybe you'll get a bigger one.
My first 3 fights as a pro were in the midweek. One was on Monday, 2 were on Wednesday, or 2 Monday, 1 Wednesday, something like that. Yeah. In Leisure Centre, sold out. Thank you.
And you turned out all right.
Well, and look at me now, the huge multi-million recording artist that I am. But what I'm saying, but I mean, they were great atmospheres and good nights.
Yeah,
I think you can
absolutely,
without TV, of course, but so you can achieve that.
They certainly were good nights for you, Barry.
Nice candle.
There we go. Anyway, so let's move ahead to this weekend. Zach Parker versus John Ryder for the WBO interim super middleweight title fight. Before you hear from myself and these two gentlemen here, we spoke to Zach Parker. Here's what he had to say about his bout with John Ryder this weekend. One of the things that I wanted to discuss with you, little flick through your box rec. Have you ever boxed a southpaw before?
No, I didn't even know this until yesterday. And some other interviewers told me. I was like, I've heard, I don't know if I did or not, but yeah, it shows that I ain't. But I really liked boxing southpaws. I always liked it in the amateurs and that, and obviously I'm a switch hitter myself, so I know what shots to take when I need to take them. So yeah, should be a good fight.
Obviously bringing in southpaw sparring as well with your trainer Errol Johnson. How's camp been? Obviously get the kind of generic boring questions out of the way, but working with a southpaw, as you mentioned, something new to work on in preparation.
Yeah. To be fair, we've got a couple of southpaws in the gym, like Tyler Denny. He had a good win last weekend, and me and him been sparring together. He's short, comes forward a lot, so it's a lot like John Ryder's style. So yeah, I spar him all the time, even like out of training that. So yeah, like I said, I like sparring southpaws, boxing southpaws, and obviously I switch it myself, so I know a few little tricks in the trade.
bit of a process, I guess. You were supposed to box Demetrius Andrade, that fell through. Just discussing that first and foremost. I mean, you can see now you've got your Derby shirt on in front of you. I could imagine how excited you were at the prospect of boxing at Pride Park, and sure, something that you'll explore in the future, I'm sure. But was that a disappointment missing out on that opportunity?
Yeah, it's been a bit frustrating this last year. Obviously, it's been inactive a bit. Obviously, no fault of my own or my team. Obviously, Andre pulled out the first fight, saying he had a shoulder injury, but I don't know much about that. I've never seen a scan or nothing, but we're here now. I think everything happens for a reason, and now we're heading to one of the biggest stages in the world, and at the O2 in boxing, one of the best super middleweights out there. To be fair, he's got a good record behind him, and he's fought a lot of top guys. So yeah, I feel like this fight makes out for a lot better fight than the Andre fight. Because I reckon Andre had been running, it'd make it awkward. You know what you get with John Ryder, he's going to come forward and try and impose himself. And like I said, it should make out for a great fight for fans, because I'm going to be going forward as well.
That was one of the things I was going to come on to. John Ryder as an opponent, you mentioned there, you know, he likes to come forward. What are you expecting from him? What does he do well? And without giving too much away, obviously, what things do you think you're going to be able to implement on him on fight night?
Yeah, like I said, he's come forward fight. He does that well. He uses his size for his advantage, head movement coming in, and obviously it makes it a bit more awkward because he's a southpaw. But like I said, I like southpaws and that. And come fight night, I'll show everyone that I'm from the people what have beat him already, I'll be on that top level. It's exactly the same.
So that was Zach Parker, who, of course, contests the WBO interim. It's kind of like the Canelo playoff against John Ryder this weekend. Barry, going to come to you first. I mean, we kind of discussed it. I'm still not quite sure how good Zach Parker is. He could win this fight by stoppage. He could get stopped. He could. I've no idea.
Well, there's no one. I can't really think who. Did he box Darryl Williams?
He boxed Darryl Williams.
I did that fight.
WBSS. I think it was Josh Taylor versus Ryan Martin.
It was, yes.
Yeah.
Well done, mate. Yeah, I did that for the...
And he dislocated his shoulder, I think, in the second round. And in my opinion, lost...
Close. Yeah, lucky. Yeah.
I mean, I thought he lost 9-10 of the rounds. And Darryl Williams, by the way, never boxed again, which, you know, terrible. You never want to hear anything like that. But yeah, I think that's kind of the most well-known name on his resume.
But what I would say, he looks really good, actually, Parker. He looks like, he got all the nice style. He's big, he's powerful without being a destroyer, but he looks solid. But against who? That's the problem you have. So,
Marcus
Morris. To be fair, Steve Bunn said that on the BT broadcast, and like trying to do himself out of a job, it seems. But he said, you have to make Ryder a huge favourite. How can you not? And he's right, how can you not? Because all the pedigree lies with John Ryder through his defeats and his successes. And he's having an Indian summer at the minute, let's be honest. He's the best he's ever been, John Ryder, right now. So I think, I thought he was a guy who just wasn't going to really make it, to be fair. But he's having a fantastic run, and so even in his defeats, he's boxing well and doing. So he's boxing at a much higher level. So he has to be a massive favourite. How long does he have left? That's the worry.
He had the fight with Callum Smith, which a lot of people thought that he won, which of course he didn't get the decision. And he had the fight with Danny Jacobs, where a lot of people thought that he lost.
Yeah.
And he got the decision. So it's been an up and down career for him. I kind of remember like years ago, Nick Blackwell and Billy Joe Saunders. But
either way, he's competitive in those
fights.
Again, at the highest level, by the way. Even the Billy Joe fight, which he lost, and I did that for Box Nation back then, and I thought he lost fair and square, but it was close. So I think I had 2 points for Billy, which makes it a close enough fight. He did really well. They're both early in their careers, and it was his first defeat, wasn't it? And but I mean, even then, he's still competitive against high level opposition. He's not getting battered by anybody. Like Jacobs couldn't do a number on him. Callum Smith couldn't dominate him like we all thought he was going to. Let's be honest. And he was outdone by against Callum Smith. I thought he did enough to win, to be fair. And so. He should be a huge favourite in this, even though he's naturally the smaller guy. But I don't know. Parker's got to show something he hasn't shown us before. But he might have that. Again, he's like one of those, isn't he? Who knows how good he is? This fight will tell us, I think.
Andy, thoughts on Zach Parker?
I think I did his fight against Rowan Murdoch.
Yeah.
And I thought he boxed well that night. but Rowan Murdoch hadn't really boxed too many people himself, so he did what he needed to do, and he looked good in the process. And you'd say the same about the performance against Marcus Morrison. Marcus Morrison, though, isn't really a super middleweight. No. So he's done what has been required of him every step of the way so far. There was that fight against Williams, which I agree. I thought Darryl Williams definitely won that fight, but there were mitigating circumstances with the shoulder, and he's kind of potential as opposed to a proven body of work, which is what Ryder's got. I went along to the press conference actually, and it was kind of a strange event because it was up at the top of the O2 in the Sky Bar, and I think he just missed one train, Zach Parker, and it was during one of those couple of days where there was just carnage on the train strikes, and that meant that cost him like 2 hours. So we were all up there sitting around for ages just waiting for him to get there. It was all very low key. I know how that feels. Yeah, well, we all know how that feels. It was all very low key and just quite kind of mood, because it's like soft lighting. We're all just sitting around in these comfy chairs. It was just good fun just to spend the afternoon chatting to your pals, and then all of a sudden people arrive and you have to have a press conference, and we were all a bit kind of like, oh, what an inconvenience. But yeah, I mean, the backers, Neil Marsh and the people behind Zach Parker, Black Country Boxing, they've got a lot of belief in him. But he's going to have to deliver a career best performance by a distance to beat John Ryder. But it doesn't mean that he can't do it.
Yeah.
We'll see. And I like it. I like it a lot as a fight. I think, like I said, I might go along this Saturday and just have a look, because it's a really good British fight.
It certainly is. And we also spoke to John Ryder ahead of his bout this weekend against Zach Parker. Here's what he had to say ahead of his bout at the O2 Arena.
Does this fight just show if both parties really want it, it can be done?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously it was ongoing at the same time as Fury and AJ, and I think it's I know we got mine Zach Parker's fight over the line, but there's a lot more goes into obviously the AJs and the Fury fights that I wouldn't even begin to understand. But so it shows that the two parties can work together and agree. But listen, hopefully in time they can agree to the mega fight of them two, and give the fans what they really want.
Let's talk about Zach then. He does carry power, come forward fighter. You're expecting the styles to gel quite well?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think he doesn't really like to take a backward step, does he? He's takes a few side to side steps when he's switching, but no, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I've been in there with bangers before, and you often know what banger's going to bring to the table, but he's got a bit more to his game than just a come forward banger. He switches it up. He's head and body. He's doing it from both stances. So I've got to have my work cut out, but I think I've been in there with enough styles now to know what I'm up against and to find a way.
Look, you are the away fighter here. You've been stung on scorecards before in the past in your career. Do you just have to put any judging concerns to the back of your mind and just do your job on the night?
Yeah, I think so, because you can get in your head that, you've got to go for the stoppage, but I've been in there looking for the stoppage before and it just doesn't come. So you're better off to go out there, box to the best of your abilities, and have faith in what the judges do. They're there for a reason, and listen, we've seen it before, and I'm sure we'll see it again. But we've got to trust in these judges that they do their job properly. And I could be signing my own death certificate here saying things like this, but just trust that they judge a fight fairly, and the correct winner gets the victory on the night.
So that was John Ryder. Barry, we kind of discussed it there. We've always kind of lobbied against and always preached caution when it comes to rating fighter on the back of losses or close fights that they've had. But I think he's as kind of solid an operator at now super middleweight, formerly at middleweight, as we've had in the UK for a while. And I don't know, I think he's kind of in a position where almost for John Ryder, the pressure's on him a little bit, I feel, because if he loses this fight, it's kind of difficult to see where his route to a world title goes from here.
I don't think you feel the pressure though, because he's on a rival broadcast, really. Let's be honest. So he'll think all the pressure's on Parker. I think that's what they feel. They're selling it on him being a future world champion. This is for an interim title, whatever that means. I don't know what that means if they get made real champion. If someone don't eat their breakfast.
Canelo's got the full
Some
title.
don't eat
So
their breakfast on time. I don't know who knows, but no, but it's a forget about the title. It's a good fight.
Yeah.
It's a really good fight, but I don't think he'll feel the pressure. I think if it was on his side of the street, he'd feel the pressure because the resume is all in his favour. He's not stepping on a level, but he's the only one who stepped higher. He stepped above level. He's been at a higher level. He's boxed with genuine world class fighters, but Parker hasn't shown that yet. So yeah, and he can just what he does right as well. He adjusts the distance really well for a shorter guy. He has that hand a little bit low, the lead hand a little bit low at times, but his feet are pretty good, so he gets in and out quite effectively, and he can work away. He's not a biggest puncher, but he got decent power. I think he don't probably hit as hard as Parker, but he knows how to ride a shot.
There he goes.
It's in his name, and I think he takes a decent shot as well. So I think you see how effective he cut the distance down against a massive guy like Callum Smith. So yeah, so it's a hard ask for Parker. He's going to have pressure that he hasn't had before, more intelligent pressure that he hasn't faced before. He's faced the pressure, people like Darryl Williams and people like that who put lots of pressure on him. But this would be pressure and guy who moves around the tag a little bit more effectively, which is what Ryder will do. He'll get around the side of you and work away. And so how he copes with that. I think if Parker can hurt Ryder early, then he's got a really good chance of dominating, actually, not just winning. But I got to go with Ryder. You got to go. He's just such an unknown quantity, Parker, that you have to go with Ryder. I think he knows how to manage a fight better. And for what I've seen, ability wise, he for me, there's more to his game all round his game. I think Parker looks better, looks more structured because his hands nice and high, got a lovely jab, lovely right hand. But I think Ryder been more lateral movement, and I think that would be more effective.
Ryder a huge favourite for you, Andy, or is he just how do you see this?
I think you just have to install him as a solid favourite for all the reasons we discussed. I think he's physically quite a difficult fighter to handle, Ryder, potentially. Like Barry said, if you can't put a dent in him, or at least give him something to think about when he's working his way onto the inside and do it nice and early. What he did against Callum Smith really well was he got so tight to him. He's got real strong legs on him, planted them wide, almost either side of Callum Smith, pushed him back into the ropes, whereby the taller guy just had no room to do anything, and he just had enough room to do some things. It didn't look great, and that's probably why maybe he didn't get the credit on the cards that he should have got. But he is short and kind of unusual for that weight, but very, very stocky and really solid. And I agree with Barry that I think he'll like the fact that he's kind of away from home, if you like, because he was against Saunders. When this whole run started a few years ago, he was against Patrick Nielsen, who he knocked out. That was on
Rhodes Eubank undercard.
Yeah, that was on a World Boxing Super Series show, wasn't it? And Nielsen was the Sauerland guy, so John was the away fighter. And he was the away fighter, although they're both with the same promoter against Callum. So, I think this is kind of how he likes it. And yeah, I think he'll be pretty relaxed about the whole thing, to be honest.
And you are right, he is good inside, isn't he? And that's that Colin leg thing. You said Colin Dunn. And the front hand's quite low, but when they use their shoulders really well, and they use their forehand, they can just create distance when they're close, and they use their weight, they lean on you and they do it quite effectively. I think so he's learned old school that
yeah,
way, I think.
Definitely.
He's trained by a different guy now, of course, but that was the original thing. I always thought that lead hand too low was going to get him in trouble.
Yeah.
But he tucks that chin right behind that shoulder.
He does. He absolutely does. And what you're seeing is he touches his face a lot with his gloves. Like
he's
checking himself a lot of the time. It's just kind of like, where am I? Am I where I need to be? And that's what that's all about.
Used to do it. I know you just really do all this, all that. But it's all just making sure your hands are up. It's a little habit. They always say if one hand's out, the other hand's close to your face and things like that. You always learn that to keep them close. Yeah.
Okay, so that's Saturday night across the way. Well, not across the way. It's quite a jaunt over to Alexandra Palace. No, Wembley Arena, Dillian Whyte. The OVO Arena, is it?
These days, yeah.
Yeah, the Wembley, it's for the sake of the
Soulless City.
Soulless City, Wembley Arena. Dillian Whyte returns on DAZN. Shout out DAZN for Barry Jones. Get all your latest DAZN bet stuff. You still doing DAZN bet?
I'm still doing it. You don't watch it, do you? I don't watch this. What's this called again? I can't remember what it's called, this channel, no?
Anyway, moving on.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe.
DAZN bet.
No, fuck DAZN bet. Like and subscribe to us. Anyway, Dillian Whyte returns.
It's the best 15 minutes of my week.
Yeah, I bet it is, mate. I bet it is. Dillian Whyte returns against unknown quantity, I think it's fair to say, in Jermaine Franklin. On the back of a pretty resounding defeat to Tyson Fury back in April at Wembley Stadium. He now returns at Wembley Arena. Good to have him back. Been a kind of a colourful character in the heavyweight division over the last decade or so, Dillian Whyte. I'm
not a fan of these. They go on for too long now, these boxers. The other new ones come through now. I don't want to keep like the Derek Chisora. He won't go away, will he? You know what I mean? Like they just keep on forever and ever and ever. Like.
The soon-to-be WBC heavyweight champion of the world, potentially. Anyway, we don't have time for that. We've got a few shows to crack on and get through. But Dillian Whyte, I'm not really sure what to expect from Dillian Whyte this week. And I have to say, Barry, I don't know what you're thinking.
For what I've seen of Franklin, he looks okay. You know, fast hands. You know, I don't know if he takes a shot. It's hard to really tell. But I mean, he looks all right. I don't think his hands are fast in his feet. I think what he does do, he throws his shots and he holds his feet for a little bit. I think that might be a worry, because if Dillian Whyte throws when he's like straight after he throws, he's targeted to be hit. But I think it's what Dillian's got left. I thought Dillian's lost a step or two before the Fury fight, to be honest. Like he wasn't beating Fury at his very best anyway. That's the truth of it. Nothing wrong with that. It's Tyson Fury, for God's sake. But I mean, and stylistically, it's wrong for you because he's 6'11", but he's 6'7". He says he's 6'9". I said he's 6'11", but he's 6'7". But no, he's a giant. He with a big long reach. He's always going to be stylistically hard for the guy who swings that right hand over the top from so far away. That's Derek Chisora, and he throws a big left hook. But anyway, I just think that. But I think he's on the wane anyway by now. Before
a lot of hard fights. And it's wars in the gym as well. I mean, he's sparred everybody in the gym. Yeah. He's had a lot of hard fights as a pro. Because been brutally knocked out in 2 of his last 3 fights.
Yeah, but he's brutally honest as well. I'll be honest. What I like about him is he doesn't care. He doesn't let that defeat affect him mentally. He just gets up and goes, "I'll fight again." Yeah, I sort of like that about him. And I think he'll overcommit. He gives his all. And they all say about other fighters, but he tries his best all the time. But that gets him into trouble. Against someone like Fury, I was always going to get him into trouble. But against someone like Franklin, I think it might work for him. But I think it's all to do with what Dillian's got left. You know, if he's slowed again since then a younger, fresher guy like Franklin with decent hand speed might cause him some problems.
Andy, is that how you see it? Though.
Yeah, pretty much. I think it is just that. It's what has he got left in the locker, and there is a lot on the line here for him, but not just potentially, in reality, because if he wins this fight, then I think we all know that he's going to fight Joshua next year. Whoever wins this fight will fight Joshua next year, and that would be a big payday. And off the back of that, maybe he would call it a day, win or lose. So there's a lot riding on it, and I don't think for 1 second that he's going to be taking Franklin lightly. It's just whether he's still got enough to get on top of him from the start, which I think is what he needs to do, and just stamp his authority on the fight. You don't really want to let anyone into a fight ever, but particularly in this kind of scenario, Franklin will be looking for some kind of confidence to take from somewhere. And if he can just step on him and make sure that he doesn't give him that, then I think he should have too much for him. But I did expect him to do a bit better against Fury, and it is Fury, and I agree that on his best night he wouldn't be able to beat Fury, but I was a little bit almost shocked by how little he was able to do against Tyson. And it does make me wonder whether the well has run dry, and if it has, then we'll find out on Saturday. And it's not something you ever like to see, but we see it often enough, don't we?
And also, sometimes you go through the. I talking about the fighters go through the motions. So they train really hard and they get ready and they know the plan and the method they have to go through. The training camps are the same and everything's the same. You go through the motions, you get yourself fit and sparring's okay, but I got through it. And then you do the whole ring walk thing. Everything's be a force in it. No one can see it, but you know yourself. Fighters have told me this, like they're forcing it, trying to get that feeling right, trying to get that. They felt. All that, and it's not like it used to be. You're not full of passion like it used to be. Because this is not, this is a fight that's all on the line, but it's still a lower level fight for what he's been at. But for Franklin, this is the biggest fight of his career by a million miles.
Changes entire
Yeah,
life.
good point. That.
One, there's going to be people in the arena. He's probably not used to that. Let's be honest. In America, people forget how much there's no crowds half the time they fight. It's worse than my career. And they're boxing for nobody. There's like 20 people watching in a pub. And so these boxing in an arena now, I don't know how many tickets are sold, but it's going to be quite busy, I would have thought. And it's on TV, and it's a massive different thing for him against a guy who's a big name in the division, world ranked, of course, still. And yeah, so it's for him, it's everything. He'll either freeze or he'll give the best display of his career while he's in there. And if you're trying to force that feeling out yourself, trying to go through the motions, hopefully that passion kicks back in. I don't know. I'm talking potentially. He might be full of passion, but if you're trying to force it, it'll be evident. But either way, I just think even if he wins, and he should win, I would have thought, what I've watched, if he got like 50% of what he got, Dillian Whyte, I think he's still got enough to win. I don't see his place anymore at world level. And I think this division is not steeped full of quality either, I have to say. I mean, it's really competitive, and it's been a great division because it's so competitive.
Yeah, I was having exactly this conversation with someone the other day, saying exactly what you just said, which is that it's a really interesting division.
Yeah, no, it was me.
But it's a really interesting division, but because there are loads of competitive fights you can make, not because we're in some kind of golden era of heavyweights, because we're not. Yeah. But it's just, there are loads of fights I would want to see. But yeah, I think he has his kind of. He's slid out of that frame now, hasn't he, really? Yeah,
unfortunately for him, he didn't get his opportunity when he was when he was flying, for whatever reason that was, but that's how it turned out. He had all those massive year or so, didn't he? And a year or so in boxing, it can be from you being the best to the worst. It can literally be that way, can't it? But even then, I don't think he never, in my mind, he was never beating Fury, Wilder or Joshua. At those times when everyone was at their best, which is nothing wrong with that, being the fourth best heavyweight in the world, which he might not have been, but if he was, is great. To him, it's not. Even Povetkin, Povetkin was. I picked the shot that Povetkin knocked him out with. I literally picked it on Sky. Me and Macklin, I went, he does this, and he threw that shot. Only because Dillian's so committed to his attacks. That there's errors there, yeah. There's so many errors, yeah. He makes so many mistakes, but he fully commits himself. So when he gets it right, you're done. When he gets it wrong, he's literally he's at your mercy, pretty much, if you're calm and composed like a Povetkin is. Unfortunately for him, yeah.
I do think he's a big success story though.
Oh, absolutely,
a massive success story because he had the ban and he had to do his 2 years
early in his career. Yeah, most people just gone enough of this.
And I think that it was accepted that it was a mistake. It was something brought over the counter and all that kind of stuff. But he had to do the 2 years. How many people have to do 2 years? I mean, basically nobody. He did that, and I've always liked the way that he stood his ground in negotiations and not let himself be pushed around by any network or any promoter. He steered his own ship.
Speaking of negotiations, he was in Sky once and came in with all his team and Adam Smith. And then, so we in Sky then, we would do like this thing for social media. We'd have a little break and then we'd do the Sky Sports News and the podcast. So a little break and we're all just walking out to this room. We've gone, and then by the little canteen area on one of the floors, there's this little room. So we've all gone into this room. I'm just following people in this room. I'm on my phone like this. And Adam Smith's there and Dillian's there and all these, you got like 4 other people with him.
You realise you shouldn't be there.
They're all waiting for me to leave. I think they're doing like some sort of deal for pay-per-view. And they're all there in the end. My friend said, "Oh, hi, Barry." And I went, "Hi, mate."
Fuck off.
Yeah. Can you go, like? Can you go? He said, "Oh, we're having a meeting." I went, "Oh, sorry, I didn't realise."
Yeah, he's maximised everything from.
Yeah, he has.
Even like,
and he could have sat on that ranking, and he never did.
I mean, he's made some decisions in his career that you can't fault him for it, but he had the opportunity to box Kubrat Pulev in an IBF final eliminator rather than go over to Bulgaria and take 25% of the purse. He boxed Joseph Parker in the UK from pay-per-view, made a lot of money. Obviously, you don't get your IBF shot that way. So he's had opportunities in his career. And I think he's made some good calls in that regard.
Financially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then ultimately he
4
got
or 5 pay-per-views.
Exactly. And ultimately got the big fight against Tyson Fury. Whether or not it came at the prime time of his career, I would say no. But, had he have got that opportunity earlier on in his career against a Wilder for the WBC or somebody like that, there's no telling how that would have gone. I would have still, as you said, backed those guys against him. But if you consider, the Joshua fight for the British and Commonwealth titles was pay-per-view. I think he did 800,000 buys. Yeah. And let's be honest, Dillian Whyte was going into that fight to get knocked out. That was the plan. We're going to build the beef, the amateur fight. They'd had 4 amateur fights between them, or maybe 3 amateur fights between them. He knocked Joshua down. They sold that. Joshua's going to go in, clean him out. We move on. The fact that he's managed to fashion that career on the back of that is testament to him. And he's always, I think, maybe not always, but the vast majority of occasions he's always delivered. The Chisora fights were great fights. The Parker fight was a brilliant fight.
Yeah,
the Rivas fight was a good fight.
But there you go there though. Once you say the Chisora fights were great fights, that's always puts them.
It's an interesting barometer.
But yeah, if you're having really hard fights with Chisora, then to me I tend to think that sort of maybe think that as good as you can be, you shouldn't be having a really hard scrap with him.
He beat Usyk, didn't he? Chisora. Anyway, we don't have time for that. Final one on Whyte-Franklin, British heavyweight title fight, which I'm very much looking forward to. You've got Fabio Wardley versus Nathan Gorman. Now, this is, I think we come into this kind of scenario a lot of the times where you look at the evidence that we've had over the years. And I know Nathan Gorman hasn't always looked after himself outside of the ring, should we say. But
that's like me talking about punches
or people with hair. But we've had Nathan Gorman box at a good level as an amateur, got to a stage in his career, obviously had the Dubois fight where he didn't really turn up. But then you've got Fabio Wardley, who again has kind of boxed a mishmash of opposition. He boxed a few white collar fights, very inexperienced, but yet Fabio Wardley goes into that fight on Saturday night an overwhelming favourite. Do you agree with that, Barry? Should he be such a strong favourite?
I don't think he should be a strong favourite, but I do fancy him as it goes. I think Gorman's a solid pro and a good fighter and technically good, but I think Wardley is much better than what I thought he was going to be, actually. Because he wants to be like I thought he wants to look at him. He's just like a good-looking kid who wants to be like another Muhammad Ali, the way he's dancing around with his hands low. But he got good vision. He got really good vision, good judgment of distance. So when he flicks that jab up, he knows where he is all the time. To be fair to him, and his hands are low, but he sees the shots better than what I thought he could. I think there's a ceiling to the way he boxes as well. By the way, I would say that. But I don't think Nathan Gorman's it, and I think just these stages of their career, which is weird because Gorman hasn't had hasn't had loads of fights, but his career's been on like a stutter step.
Very much stagnated, hasn't it? He's never really rebounded from that Dubois fight.
Yeah, and just hanging around waiting for something, and this would be it maybe. But I just think he's stylistically, because he's not the fastest of feet, Gorman. He's the guy here who's really light on his feet, really fast hands. And a bit of power as well. I think Wardley's tough. Don't think he's shown. I haven't got much basis to say that, but I just got that feeling he's tough.
He fires back. He's been hurt a couple of times in the pro career. He got hit with a good shot against Eric Molina, and he came back, and then all of a sudden the fight was over. Nick Webb caught him with a good shot early in that. It was a 1-round firefight, but
that's what I was going from, of course. But I just got a feeling it's just the way he is. Like I've been around him a few times.
His kind of fight flight thing is very much in the fight.
He's tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't sound tough. He sounds like one of you lot. But, he's he's articulate and he's well spoken and he's a lovely kid and all that crap. But I think he's actually a tough fella and he's got a nice fast hands and he's going to be stylistically hard work for Gorman. But Gorman's had that experience. If Gorman can get in and cut the ring off, Gorman's not this come forward fighter though. He's a boxer himself, really, who's got fast hands. but he needs to get closer to land his shots. Gorman will have to, and I'm not sure if his feet can do that.
He needs to be in good nick as well, which is something that he's not always been.
Yeah,
in
but as long as he's fit, I don't care what he looks like.
No, you know what I mean. He needs to be fit. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's never going to be body beautiful.
Fit. But he got to be able to close the distance with his feet, and that's where he's going to come into trouble, because Wardley does change direction really well, I think, and punches off the move really well. And that's the danger for heavyweight, because you punch off the move. When I do it, it's 9 stone hitting you. When he does it, it's whatever he is, 17.5 stone. I don't know what he'd be something like that. When he's probably, so they can hit you on their toes and still hurt you from an angle you don't see, and that's the worry for Gorman. I just think he gets outsped and stopped, which is weird, because you should really say Gorman, because he got all again.
Yeah, it's kind of what we were saying before.
Yeah.
Andy, you're usually a stickler for logic, apart from when you pick Chris Eubank Jr. to win a world title this year. But anyway, we'll avoid that. Anyway,
we're only in November.
There's still a chance.
Well, it's that one didn't go my way, but my I stick by my reasoning.
How are you seeing this one?
I'm still not really sure how good Fabio Wardley is. I don't think we can know at this point, because he's had some quite odd fights. Molina, we've seen before and since. He's not really interested anymore. I thought that was looking interesting, that fight, and as you said, then all of a sudden it was over. That fight against Larty,
That was
still one of the weirdest
Is it the same Larty who came over? I think there's about 6 of them in there.
There was
6 of them with one boxing license.
It was a weird finish to a fight, that was.
Because when Larty boxed
Dubois,
he was 6'6".
and he had didn't he have an orange beard?
Yeah.
Different tattoos.
So it's hard to know. It's hard to know where he's at, and that's not his fault, because they've lined up potentially good opponents for him on paper, who then just haven't really offered an awful lot, and it's just that for me, really. I just don't really know how good he is, and hopefully this weekend will show us, because he's done everything kind of right so far, Fabio, and he seems to understand the business. I don't know what his training arrangement is these days, or whether he's been looking to change that or not change that, because he's stuck with the guy he's always been with, Rob Hodgins. Yep. And with respect, I did think at some point he was probably going to need to change that. And Robert's always struck me as the kind of guy who would probably understand that, but I don't know whether he has or he.
So he was working. He was working with Ben Davison before his last fight. But yeah, Rob has taken him from the white collar scene forward, and I think there was an understanding between them that they needed somebody who had some experience of working with elite level fighters and elite level pros. So he was working with Ben Davison ahead of his last fight, which again it was on the Chisora Pulev 2 undercard. He ended up getting a late replacement. He was due to box Kingsley eBay in that fight, which would have been a good fight, I thought. I think he's a very capable guy who looked after himself. I think he had a visa problem on the week. But yeah, I think he's still working with Ben Davison and Rob, his other coach as well, going into this week. So yeah, I think that's been, addressed. I don't think it's a full-time thing, which again kind of maybe is some movement for that in the future. But no, I agree with what you've both said as well about this fight. I think we'll find out. I think, unless Gorman comes in atrocious physical condition and is not, which I don't see, because I think for Gorman now, after having that Dubois fight, and he had a lot of problems going into that fight. I think his partner had a baby on the Monday of fight week. I think it was quite traumatic. And I don't feel. I remember him saying that he didn't feel like he was necessarily prepared as well as he could have. But if he loses this fight, it's difficult to see really where his career goes. I think Nathan Gorman.
Yeah,
it's so horrible boxing. You literally go from one of the bright prospects in the heavyweight
a lot of people
division,
picked him to beat Daniel Dubois,
and then you beat Daniel Dubois, and your whole world changes. You're boxing Trevor Bryant in a rundown casino in Miami for a version of a world title or such. But your life changes to now. If you lose this fight, you're literally a gatekeeper at domestic level at best. Sort of seen as he's better than that, his ability, but ability means nothing when you're not getting opportunity. Sometimes you have to cut your cloth accordingly. I've seen fighters who are fantastically talented become journeymen because that's the only way they can earn a living. and it's horrible, but it's cruel sport that way. You know, you go from being a hero to a zero in one fight. That can happen, but yeah, it's all the pressure's on him. He's got to perform. It puts a bit of a stumbling block, of course, for Wardley if he gets beat, but he can still regroup, I think. And yeah, like you said, I don't think Gorman can. I think this is a must-win fight for him.
And I think it's
he must know that. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you would think so,
Yeah.
and that's why I think he will be hopefully in some sort of physical shape for this, because you would hate for that to happen and him become kind of an also round. You go, oh well, if he was,
He'll be fit. He won't look fit. Like no, some people just haven't got that body shape. Unfortunately, when you're big guys like that, but he'll be fit. The thing is, he'll be, because they've boxed all his life. All he knows is boxing, so he's conditioned to the sport.
and that's why you've got these polar opposites of kind of rearing, so to speak, and grooming as a fighter. You've had Wardley, who's kind of
Really unfortunate terms there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, rearing and grooming. But anyway, moving swiftly on. Fabio Wardley. Well, Fabio Wardley was working in a call centre, and Nathan Gorman was boxing at a high level as an amateur. It's a funny old sport, isn't it? But anyway, so that's Saturday night. Moving on to Sunday, bit of Sunday boxing. I'm a huge fan of
Super Sunday.
I like it. I like when there's boxing away from sort of Saturday evening.
I would have went that Sunday, actually. That's a really good show.
Are you going to come?
No, I'm in Dubai.
There we go.
Watching Wales. I'm not going to.
What time are Wales
No,
playing today?
Wales on Friday. The Wales are playing now.
Oh, is it 4 o'clock?
No, 8 o'clock tonight.
Okay, yeah.
This is when we're recording. But I'm in Dubai when they're playing Iran.
There we go. That'll be an interesting one for you.
Be a close game, probably. We're favourites in our group.
Anyway.
No, in our group. USA, maybe.
Anyway, Sunday boxing.
It's brilliant. I love it.
I love
the
it.
afternoon boxing.
I love it. Yeah, it's good as well. Like, rather than it being sort of Sunday evening, I know we've had Friday night boxing. We even used to. I think Matchroom did a couple of the next gen shows on a Wednesday. I think a few years back, which I was a big fan of. Andy, going to come to you first because we've just come from McGuigan's gym. Of course, Adam Azim, hot shot, lightweight, like welterweight prospect, headlines against Rylan Charlton. I think the general consensus is it's a good stepping stone fight for Adam Azim, and if we can see Rylan Charlton, who's got quite naturally heavy hands, land something of note on Adam Azim, and we can kind of see how he responds to that in 8-ounce gloves, that'll be kind of what we're looking for. But I think everybody's in agreement that it's a fight where Adam Azim, if his career to date is anything to go by, and if he's 10% as good as people are telling us that he wins, and he wins well.
Yeah, that's what we were expecting to happen, and the evidence for me would certainly point that way. It's a great ride that Adam Azim is on at the minute, because when Sky split with Matchroom and all of that happened, fighters would have been kind of looking around and positioning themselves, and there are always going to be some winners there who not came from nowhere exactly, but who would then get onto that Sky trade, which is the biggest platform out there, and it could work out really well for them. And Riyad Paul was one, and Azim has been another one, and they're putting a lot behind him. And there's no limit to the hype that you can put behind a fighter who is undefeated and young, and seems to understand things that go on outside of the ring, and the way that you sell things, and all of the rest of it. I think he's been matched well so far. I think the fact that these fights haven't lasted very long is to his credit, because he stopped someone like Jordan Ellison, who's a very capable guy, beat Dylan Chima, for example, recently. Conor Marsden was a Southern Area champion when he blew him away, and Rylan Charlton, I think, again is another good step. And I struggle to see anything other than an Azim win, to be honest with you. It's just a question of what will we find out about him on Sunday that we didn't already know, because in the gym they see him a lot and they'll tell you all sorts of things about how good he is, but we don't know. Nobody knows, and it would be good to see him pushed, definitely.
Barry, expecting any resistance from Rylan Charlton this weekend?
No. Not for the one to try it. I wouldn't add, but I think people. Do we say so? We want to see what it's like when Azim gets hit. What about when Charlton gets hit? That's the difference. I think they're slowing his progress down. I think he's that good. I do. I don't know why I do. There's nothing real tangible to say that why. I mean, we had him on the Sky podcast, great podcast, and I was going. He's that sort of kid that you step it up levels. If he passes that level, I bypass 2 or 3 and go the next one above. I'm not saying chuck him into the world title, but I mean I think he might have been already beyond the Rylan Charlton level. I think, and so I don't see how he gets hit. And he's too big at this. He's going to be a bigger guy. He's going to be a bigger weight. I think he's too big and too long for these guys. And he judges his distance fantastic. When we're going to see him, what he's made of is when he settles at his weight of welterweight or lightweight or whatever, whatever he ends up as, and he hasn't got that advantage of height and reach that he has right now, or physical size, and they're bigger, so they're not as intimidated by him and all the rest of it. And when he steps up in, and because he's going to get to that level, that weight, when he's moving up in levels as well, so they're going to be better fighters who are actually bigger. Then the advantages he has now at lightweight and super lightweight, they're not going to be the same for him. And that's an adjustment. So how's he going to cope with that? Then we'll see how good he really is. But right now, I think he's just skipping through it in a breeze. And I don't think this, unfortunately, I don't want to put anyone down, but I just don't see this as a test for him. And I think he's that good.
It's just really difficult, though, to get people to fight him. And I do agree. It's skipping up levels, ideally. That's.
I know, so he's too young. You want to like you.
That's what you would do, but how do you
organically let it go? But like he's too young to get there.
Yeah, how do you if you're ahead of him in your career and above him in the rankings, there's just no reason you'd fight him. No, just none.
But imports, well, you got to get your checkbook out. Unfortunately, that's the only way the people fight.
But I think what they would definitely, in an ideal world, obviously, and we're not in one, but I think that is what they'll have to do, because although you would like him to fight a British guy, someone who can speak English and can sell the fight a bit better and all the rest of it, and someone he's going to look good against. Where are they? Where are these people?
You got to go further afield now. I mean, you got to get some tests for him. I think he's just that he's at that level, unfortunately, for people. But what you do with him, that's the thing. I think he is like a special talent.
And he's got that type of style as well, where because he's so twitchy and he's so powerful, he's got such good hand speed, he's going to blow guys out into a point where he's not. So I sort of said this to Chris Billham-Smith, who's gym mate and sees a lot of him day to day. I said, how far up do you think he can go before he faces some resistance? He's like, I genuinely think he goes through people up to sort of European level before he gets anyone who kind of fiddles around and can take him into the second half of a fight, which is just incredible.
Which, to be honest, though, is what most of them do.
Yeah,
like the Nazis and the Kazakis and all that. That's what they do. Look at Joe Kazak. He blasting people out. They go, oh, look at him. Like he was this huge puncher, and they actually turned out. Kevin Mitchell was a big puncher when he turned pro, by the way. And then he turned to be a boxer. He was a boxer, really, but he was blasting through people because he was just way better than them. And same with Naz, of course, was a world-class puncher, but she wiped the floor with everyone until he got to Bel Castro.
And that's when
only Peter Buckley took him the distance.
Yeah, that's when the what you're doing in the gym with them and the sparring becomes really important, doesn't it? Because whilst that's happening, they have to understand that it's not always going to be like this.
You're teaching them what to do,
the
right thing. Yeah. Habits. I always say when you first turn pro, you'll get away with loads of stuff so you can show off. But bad habits are hard to get rid of, then good habits are hard to keep. So it's all keeping those good habits all the time.
Yeah, so they're ready to go when you don't wipe somebody out, because it won't always be like that. And I remember one trainer described it to me as puncher's disease. And you start believing in your own power, and then as soon as it doesn't work, you're in trouble, because
punchers
what do you do then?
To defend, do they? Because they don't have to.
Yeah, exactly.
Their defence is hitting you harder.
Yeah.
That's what it is for a lot of them, isn't it? Yeah.
He's in a good gym for nurturing that talent and pushing it forward. Obviously,
you love this gym. Here we go. Go on then.
Josh Taylor became world champion in 13 fights. He boxed, I think, Victor Postel in his 12th fight.
Yeah.
The way they managed his career for his talent was
straight through.
But it was perfect.
The right opponent at the right stage.
But anyone else,
he boxed. I think he
boxed
hard. Dave Ryan in his 5th fight for the Commonwealth title. Then he had the Hara Davis fight, Victor Postel.
Oh, it was so well done.
Really well.
Obviously, the people were out there at the right time, but they made the right move.
But he did. So he did what McGuigan did. But Barry McGuigan, when he boxed Laporte, or Laporte, whatever you say it, at that time, that was a harder fight than Pedrosa. Pedrosa was a better boxer in the history because he was like on his 14th defence. But he was probably at the end of his reign. He was an older man then. But Laporte was a quality fighter. And McGuigan had him before that. And that was his acid test. That was the harder fight, the world title fight. So his world title fight was really, on paper, easier. You know, it was a hard fight and a great performance. And I think it was the same for Josh.
Postel and
Postel was harder than Branchek.
Who
Branchek
is,
was a hard fight.
who is Adam Azim's Victor Postel?
Well, we don't know yet because he's not there.
When he gets, like, we've been to discuss, because I was thinking about this earlier.
He gets it tomorrow.
Maybe
No, not tomorrow. Like a couple of fights down the line. Who is going to be that person?
Maybe it's Baranchik.
I think Baranchik. I don't think he's going to be fighting much longer. I think he
might not. Yeah, he might be done by the TO.
And you'd want somebody as well. Sorry, Ray. You'd want somebody who can kind of, like Baranchik, sort of, it's become a bit of a glass cannon, particularly in recent years. Yeah, there's a Zepeda fight, the Montana Love fight, where he's got this power, but as soon as he gets hit, he's on shaky legs. I think the Taylor fight took a lot out of him, by the way, where Taylor won the world title. He dropped him twice. It's a hard fight, and since then, he never really looked the same. But you'd want Adam Azim to go in there with kind of a Victor Postel, really, of years gone by, somebody who's experienced, unflappable, technically very good.
The difference is, though, when Josh Taylor was doing this, he was 27, 28.
Yeah, of course.
And Adam...
The difference in senior amateur experience, or Commonwealth gold medalist.
The difference between 27, 20, 21 is the toughness. You can be just as tough, but you don't, like, when you're a kid, you beat up. You want to, like, when you get beat up when you're like 7, you cry. When you beat up when you're 15, you don't cry. It just hurts. And it's different, and so it's a different, that sort of thing. When you're a man, you know to toughen up. When you're young and you've never been beat up before, you might look for a way out. If that happens to you, you push him too soon. It's so hard. You push him too soon. I say you got to do it organically. You push him too soon, and he's in a hard fight against someone who he's technically better than have, but they can take your shot and they get on you and they bust you up. He won't cry, but he might just like fall apart. Oh, so what's going on? Like, but when you're 20, when you like get late 20s, you're just naturally tougher because life has toughened you up because you've experienced more things. That's just what happens for all of us, isn't it? And I think that's the difference. Because the age-wise for Josh was perfect. Yeah. But this guy, it's one of those, I don't know what you do with him. It's really difficult.
Actually, I think a decent fight for him could be. I was thinking the other day about McKenna, but then he's moved up in weight, Tyrone McKenna. But then I thought about the guy who he boxed at Falls Park last summer, Jose Felix. Yeah. 39-6, something like that. His last fight was against Sandor Martin, and he lost that over 10. He lost over 10 to McKenna, but gave him a good run.
Dropped him, didn't he?
Yeah, dropped him, gave him a good run. Someone like that will probably take it. It's not, people won't have heard of him, so it's but he's got a good record, and he is tough. You know I think you're looking at. I think. Yeah, I don't know if he can do super lightweight anymore, or whether
I don't think. Who knows when Adam's going to in 3 months' time?
I don't think he goes up that quick. It wasn't that long ago.
I don't know.
You
see him on me.
But McKenna is the kind of bloke who would maybe accept the challenge and take the fight.
Yeah, he's mad, isn't he? So and you'd think that you'd have to, kind of what you discussed earlier, somebody who's further along in their career, kind of looking back and seeing Adam Azim like, cartoonishly knocking people out and going, you kind of need somebody a little bit. Off the wall as Tyrone McKenna is. That's us talking about Adam Azim. ID Boxing's Andy Purwell spoke to Adam Azim at McGuigan's gym today. Here's what he had to say about his return this weekend.
One thing people have wanted to see from yourself now is because it hasn't happened yet, he's taken a punch on your chin. That's the one thing people have question marks over for yourself. Is that something which excites you now? Because, listen, Rylan might not land on you either, but he's somebody who will continue to try and come forward, as we've said.
Yeah, do you know what? Everyone gets hit at boxing. Like, every part of your career, there's some point that you're going to have to take a shot anyways. It happens to everyone, you know. Like, even look at Floyd Mayweather against Shane Mosley. He got hit in his first time. Look how he handled it, you know. You got a lot of fighters that they're going to have to get hit one day, you know. And you know what? I'm ready, you know. I know for a fact how to handle it. You know, it all comes when you're in the fight. You know how you adapt to it. I can adapt to any style. I can adapt to any period of time in the ring. So I know what I'll be doing in that day.
I thought that was a fire alarm, man. You know what you will be doing, Adam, but with that in mind, what does happen when you step between the ropes on Saturday? Sunday night, I keep Sunday, mate. It's confusing because there's loads of shows on over weekends on, but Sunday, what happens when you do step between the ropes?
When I get in the ring, you know, it's going to be a pure masterclass, as I said, and you guys will see just a pure technician what I'm going to be doing. You guys will see the best, a lot more of me. When I go through the rounds, you guys are like, wow, this guy, you know, he's the real deal.
I I know you won't want to look beyond Sunday, but with that in mind, a couple of weeks ago, a name which has been linked to yours recently, Dalton Smith. He was successful in Manchester against Casey Benjamin. Firstly, Adam, what did you make of his fight and his performance against Casey?
You know what? I think Dalton I think he done well. Because obviously Casey Benjamin's a very awkward fighter. As he said in the interview that he's an awkward fighter. But I know that Dalton had that chest infection. That does affect you when you're fighting. So obviously, I can tell Dalton was just a bit off because of he had a chest infection. But I thought he done well. It was a good. It was more of a technical fight. It wasn't more of a rugged fight where it was just them two going to war. It was more of a technical fight. But it was good because a lot of boxers that understand why it was a good technical fight. I think non-boxing fans were probably not like, oh, it wasn't an exciting fight, but in our eyes, it was a good fight. So,
his name being linked with yours, as I say, Adam, is it a fight you think will happen 100% down the line?
You know what? So we both got different pathways so far. I've still got a lot to prove, and he has a lot to prove. Obviously that fight comes down the line. It'll be a good fight, but obviously the time's not there yet. So obviously I know Dalton very well as well. So, but we get that fight. It'll be a good fight. Down the line. But obviously we both got a road to journeys different. Different journeys we got. So obviously if that fight comes, it will come. But obviously it's not the right time now.
So that was Adam Azim. A lot of hype surrounding him, of course. We've kind of talked around the Rylan Charlton fight as a little bit of a, with respect to him, as something of a formality for Adam Azim moving forward. Now here's a fight that's been discussed prematurely, as often things are in boxing, but we all love to build a domestic super fight down the line. Barry, going to come to you first. Adam Azim versus Dalton Smith. Do anything for you in a couple of years' time?
Yeah, it's a great fight, isn't it? Because Dalton had a hard fight last week. Really hard scrap. We had to really think. For the first time, I think he had to really think. And was it Casey Benjamin?
Casey Benjamin.
Casey Benjamin. Yeah, really hard fight. But he looked really, again, technically really good. And as the rounds go on, that technique shines through. And a guy who's really trying to push you, like trying to make you rush your work. In the end, then that technique just gets you through it. Yeah, it's a great fight. But But you see Dalton Smith. I think Dalton Smith's been the best prospect in the UK for a while. He's beyond that now, unfortunately for him. Not for him. Unfortunately, he can't be called that anymore. He's moved on now, but he's a real talent, I think. But I think we've seen Saturday that last week that he has to just not had aspirations for him to keep jumping the gears all the time. Just stay at this level for a little bit and work on what you got. The ceiling seems lower for him than it does for Adam Azim, I would say.
Is that because we've seen Dalton Smith box at, Casey Benjamin won, Ray Moylett, somebody box at a good level as an amateur. We've seen Dalton Smith, obviously he's further along in his career now, he's British champion. Is it because we've seen kind of him meet some resistance against Casey Benjamin?
He's really good, but he's conventional.
Yeah.
So you see him as being good, solid, and he could be world champion, by the way, and a very good one at that, I think, maybe, potentially. Depends on who's around at the time. But Adam just seems special. He does all those things that you shouldn't do. Hands low, punch from too far out, all the shit that you wouldn't teach anyone to do, and gets away with it. Like Naz did everything wrong, all those things. They did everything, all things you shouldn't do. Bend over the way you do and throw punches from your feet and all that crap and put your chin out, all this shit you shouldn't do. That's going to get you in trouble. That would get me knocked out, you knocked out, we all get knocked out doing it. And a lot of people did, by the way, from the gym. But when they had success, it was massive. And when you have power as well, like Adam's got that natural power that you can teach, and you can hone it, make it better and more accurate, and give it more of a focus and make it more direct. But he has that. He just has it. So he's just lucky. He don't deserve any credit for it now, thinking about it. But so he has, so that you just see that and you just think, as good as Dalton is, those punches from different angles are coming at, how's he going to defend against those? But also, if he's solid, he can take a good shot, is because he's solid, he has great technique and really good footwork and great judgment at distance. Would he be able to just expose that straight away early and put Azim under pressure? It's a good fight. But I think Azim goes big. See? I think he goes big. He's going to be a middleweight. Maybe a middleweight in 6 months. I think he's a baby. See, he's got so much to grow, haven't he?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He's still very much developing. I think.
And he looks like a baby. I was with him
They'll
the
try,
other
and
week
win,
in
I
Sky,
think
and
he'll
he
try and
looks-
win a title. They'll try. The plan for him will be to win a world title at 140. I don't think they've completely ruled out 135, but I think now he's kind of growing and maturing. And also, all of the big names from 135 are all coming up. Devin Haney's about to move up, the Lomachenko fight. So I think 140 is going to be kind of where it's at for the next few years. And then welterweight's always well stocked. Andy, just sort of same thing on you. I mean, I know it's highly premature. And I think I actually tweeted something about it with people talking about, Dalton Smith against Casey Benjamin, Adam Azim knocks him out in 2 rounds. It's way too early to make any kind of definitive knee-jerk reactions around it. But it is something that, I think Dalton and Adam have both discussed. I remember, go off on a bit of a tangent, the first time I saw both of them close up, they were both sparring Luke Campbell when Luke Campbell was preparing for Ryan Garcia. And I'll never forget Adam Azim coming into the gym, and I didn't know who he was at the time. And he came into the gym, he had his bag on and his coat. He took his bag off, took his coat off. He did a couple of really small stretches and then got in and did 6 rounds with Luke Campbell. Just literally straight in there. He's 18 years old at the time.
I do that all the time.
But yeah, that was something that was very. I remember looking at him at the time. I remember Shane's kind of looking and seeing both of them. And there was an awful lot of respect between them as well, which I think is nice to see. And I think in the ring, their styles complement each other quite nicely. I think it's a nice blend between them, and they seem very respectful. But anyway, before I went off on one there,
Casey Benjamin
against Adam Azim.
Yeah, that's a potential.
Yeah, and there's you can have
I
a
think
yardstick and a barometer.
You do that if you really think he's going to be special, which I do. Then you do that now. You start putting. You're talking about Dalton Smith. You wouldn't put him in with him right now. Why would you? Or maybe you would. But I mean, start doing that. I'll do a better job than you did.
There's another super lightweight who I like a lot who's boxing this week, which is Harlem Eubank, and he doesn't really get mentioned. I don't think as much as he should. Because I think he's a really good fighter. And I'd love to see Dalton Smith against Harlem Eubank. We're not going to see Dalton Smith against Adam Azim anytime soon. But if the board mandated, he's just done a mandatory, Dalton. But if they decide, because that European title at super lightweight is tied up because there's a rematch in December and then the mandatory's already sorted out. So if he decided he wanted to try and win it outright, he needs to defend it 2 more times. So maybe he won't get another mandatory put on him in that space if he does them quickly. But Harlem Eubank, Dalton Smith, it'd be a great British title fight.
Yeah, I'd like that.
Harlem Eubank, I never really massively impressed with him. Then he boxed Daniel Egbaniki.
Danny Darko,
yeah. And that was I think it was a Sandor title. But he boxed so well.
Yeah, it was a really good
I think we did that fight.
It was been
in Wakefield,
in the production place.
That's it.
Production pack. But it was, and he boxed so well against a guy who's really athletic or awkward, can punch a little bit, and could be quite and he just slowed him down, didn't he?
Yeah,
just shut him down. Really good. And he boxed really well.
Because I know he was thinking Harlem when Sam Maxwell vacated. He was thinking, I've got to be in the mix here, surely. And then Dalton was supposed to box Akeem Ennis-Brown. And then he stepped aside and he's thinking then, I've definitely, come on. And then they allowed Dalton Smith against Sam O'Mason. And I think he was standing on the outside of that thinking, hang on. So, I think he's definitely
good call, mate.
He's definitely due the board. He's due the board.
Yeah,
pushing him into a fight like that. I think you can't live your life as a pro boxer thinking
the board should have convention, shouldn't they? Like where he's been. If they had convention.
But you can't, as a fighter, you can't live your life thinking about what you deserve or you'll go mental because it's just not how it works. But I think he does deserve it. I think he does deserve it.
That'd be an interesting fight. Right, before we go, because we've only got 5 minutes left, sticking with £140, there is a great fight this weekend for the vacant WBC super lightweight title. Jose Zepeda versus Regis Prograis. Now that fight is a beauty. Barry?
Yeah, unbelievable. It's a hard one as well, I've got to be honest, because your first fight is Prograis. But I don't know.
Zepeda sort of really, he's hot and cold, isn't he?
Yeah,
he had that really flat performance a couple of fights ago against Hank Lundy. He had the brilliant fight with Baranchik before them. And then he knocked out Puerto Rican, I forgot his name. He was a prospect, top-ranked prospect, knocked him out in a round.
Oh, Verdeo?
No, he was knocking out Verdeo. Verdeo's not doing any fighting anytime soon. Fight the electric chair. But anyway, but I can't. Anyway, the name will come to me anyway. But he's either absolutely outstanding or really, really flat, and you never really know. It's going to annoy me, so I'm going to check.
But even Prograis, you know, where's his career gone? Unbelievable.
Well, he had a lot of fights fall through. I remember spoke to him back towards the start of the year, and there are lots of things that were supposed to happen that didn't happen. I think with Mikey Garcia a couple of times maybe. And I'm a fan when it comes to Prograis, because that was a brilliant fight against Josh Taylor, and it was a really close fight as well. Like, nobody made any kind of fuss about it, and rightly, because it was really close and Taylor got it, and that was fine. But one of the judges had it a draw, which I thought was a pretty solid card. One had it 7-5, again, solid card. And then the third judge had it wide to Taylor, which I thought was, which I didn't really, you know, I didn't really agree with that. And that was such a good fight. It was such a good fight, and he's just kind of disappeared since, hasn't he?
I went to that video, so it was brilliant. I thought Taylor won, by the way, but
it was on.
It was a good.
That was on the same card as David Price and Derek Chisora.
Yeah, it was late October.
The infamous no Vaseline fight. But
I think Prograis though. I do think. I think the energy he got might be just enough. And he's spiteful as well, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's been kind of been a man without a country in his career, and I think that's part of the reason why his career hasn't quite had that thrust. He boxed on Showtime when he was boxing. I think his name was Juan Heraldez. Before he went
Triller show.
He boxed Ivan Redcatch on the Triller show. He was in the WBSS, which obviously is great money, and you kind of fast tracked in. But he went in with, I think he had a WBC diamond belt or something or other, and he boxed Terry Flanagan.
That's right.
The problem with that, not problem with it, great for them. They got to pay good money.
But they come out of that and they're expecting big money. And if you're not a draw and you don't have a long-term promoter and somebody who's already invested in you, it's difficult to get. Callum Smith had the same problem.
He tried to build up. He had that Ruguru thing, didn't he? He used to wear the
I mean,
he's a great story.
He's so marketable, but it's been the lack of consistent promotion throughout his career with that one network who's going to, we all know that like networks, they lose money on fighters until they don't. And he's never really been on that journey with one who's invested, and then stuck with him where he's making the big money.
He's the kind of guy I almost thought could have just come and based himself over here.
Yeah, because he was so well received.
Because he was here for a month beforehand, training at the Peacock, living down the road from me, and Top Rank got him out.
Did a lot of media,
Mel was doing the publicity for that one, and she got him out doing all sorts. And he's really engaging. He's a really engaging character.
That's a great fight, though.
Andy, where's your money in that? Zepeda or Prograis?
I think Prograis.
And Barry, you're going for Prograis?
Yeah, naturally bigger as well. I think that'll be maybe the tell.
Yeah. Hard fight, and also a strange situation with the the mandatories after that. So the first mandatory for the WBC, shout out Mauricio. The first mandatory.
So we've got a goodie bag then, obviously.
Is Jose Suleiman, that's his dad. Jose Ramirez is the first mandatory, and then the second mandatory, because there's two mandatories, why wouldn't there be? Teofimo Lopez versus Sandor Martin, the winner of that. I really like that fight. We've got about 30 seconds, but I really, really like that fight. I have no idea where Teofimo Lopez is, like at 140 pounds. No idea. And if you're mentally frustrated against somebody like Sandor Martin, he can make it a real horrible night's work for you.
Yeah, but I don't think he will.
You think Lopez wins that?
Yeah.
Comfortable?
Yeah, not comfortable. Yeah. No, yeah. Yeah, I do, yeah.
Okay. Well, we look forward to seeing that. But I think we're about done. The timer has just gone. So that's all from us here on the ID Boxing Review. We'll call it a podcast soon. But anyway, thanks very much for stopping by. From me, Rob Tebbutt, from Andy Clarke, from DAZN Bets, Barry Jones. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll catch up with you next time.